You know, there's something strange in my neighborhood. Sounds like there's a big vacuum outside. I don't know what they're doing there, but yeah, if you hear any loud vroom vrooms in the audio of this commentary, then I apologize. I can't really control that. But today what I wanted to do was talk about some Vancouver Canucks things from Rick Tocchet. We're going to talk about his comments after the game last night. We're going to talk about Jeff Marek and what he said about the Vancouver Canucks earlier on the, I think it was Canucks Conversation podcast. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I also wanted to go over some other extra thoughts, the new lines, maybe some fantasy hockey talk in there. There's a lot of, interpersonal stuff that I can put into a Vancouver Canucks related commentary. But let's start out by talking about the game yesterday. So, as y'all know, I was at the brew house the other night watching the game with my hockey team. It was fun. The experience itself, it was fun, but the game was not so fun. Probably the only highlight of the game was Yakemchuk scoring his first NHL goal, which I honestly could not celebrate too hard. I said yesterday it was a really good goal, and it was a fantastic snipe for a first NHL tally, but the guy in my fantasy league, my buddy, he's playing me this week, he's destroying me. Yakemchuk's on his team, so while Yakemchuk scoring his first goal was great, I could not celebrate it for too long because, my guys have not really been doing all too hot this week. Connor Bedard, I am looking at you, man. You gotta start producing points, baby. What's going on with that team? Ryan Donato's been doing a lot better. I have him too, so nice to see that going down. But either way, yesterday's personal festivities for me and my hockey team were outshined by the fact that the Vancouver Canucks sucked. And Rick Tocchet went out there and spoke about that very same thing in yesterday's post-game press conference. There were a number of comments that he had that were pretty significant, but none more telling than this. It's frustrating because the fans are paying $200, $300, $400, and we're throwing out duds. I apologize to the fans again. We've got to correct this. That is a really, really mature thing to say. And I think for a lot of Canucks fans, we've seen this team be bad. We have seen this team go through the ringer. We saw how the team played under Travis Green, under Bruce Boudreau. They did have their stints where they were pretty terrible. And I don't think any of them really said something that was as meaningful as this. Maybe I'm picking straws, going out there and talking about a comment like this and microanalyzing it, but hey, there is some awareness here from Rick Tocchet. Fans are paying some good money to watch this team, and seeing them play as poorly as they did, like they had against Edmonton, for example, like they did against New York, like they did in the first Calgary game of the season. There are some duds that the Vancouver Canucks have given to the fans on home ice. It's kind of funny how bad their record has been in comparison to their road record. I mean, just to put things into perspective for this game, the Canucks only had 5-6 shots in the first two periods. And for me, I had a number of friends that were watching the game. And I was kind of, I wanted to reach out. I wanted to DM some of them saying, hey, how does it feel? You went to this crappy-ass game. But, I didn't want to rub salt in the wound. My friends know that I love them, though, so it was just kind of unfortunate to see that that was the performance that they paid good, hard-earned money to watch. What? Tocchet went out there and said this as well as to how they're playing and what happens to their overall game plan when they suit up for these things. They're playing light and shy. That's how they're playing right now. Those are the words that he kept on bringing up in the post-game press conference. And he gave specific examples, like hypothetical scenarios when X forward is not doing his job. It makes everybody else's job harder. If the forechecking forward doesn't anticipate where the play is going to go, etc., etc. He also said that he didn't want anybody in the media to ask him about specific players. And that was mostly because everybody kind of played poorly and he doesn't want to single anybody out. He wants to say that it's a team thing that the Vancouver Canucks struggled so hard with in this hockey game. Now, whether or not that means any significant changes are going to come for the Saturday game against Chicago, who really knows? I will say, though, as somebody who has Mrazek, who has Donato, who has Bedard, and who did at one point have Alex Vlasic on my fantasy team, Chicago's been in a pretty tough spot, too. That team cannot score goals for the life of them. So if there's any game to go out there and potentially play Artur Shilovs and potentially just kind of experiment with some new ideas, new lines, and try to just get the Canucks mojo back, It's that Saturday game. In fact, I'm having a difficult time debating whether or not I even want to start Peter Mrazek. There are a bunch of other guys that are available. I have Swayman, Mrazek, and Cal Pickard as my 3 goaltenders right now, and some of y'all might be asking, why in the hell do I have Cal Pickard as a goaltender? Well, it's because it's a 16-team league. And, hey, I decided to play Pickard and Mrazek last night over Jeremy Swayman, and I made the right call. It was a fantastic decision. Who knows if we can pull off that voodoo again on Saturday, but still, Chicago stinks, and Connor Bedard has not been doing much, so there is a chance for the Vancouver Canucks to really take advantage of that in the game tomorrow. Now, speaking out about the game tomorrow, we had some new lines for Canucks practice shared out by B. Batch. Brendan Batchelor on Twitter went out there and said this: Canucks Friday practice lines: Suter, Miller, Lekaramaki, DeBrusk, Pettersson, Sherwood, Joshua, Bluger, Garland, Heinen, Ratu, Hoglander. The D pairs are rotating through at the moment. Now, I don't really want to talk about Ds, but I wanted to go over those forward lines because Lekaramaki sticking around in the top 6 role with Suter and Miller, okay, that's great. Sherwood with Elias Pettersson, that is interesting as well. Not to say that Connor Garland has been bad on the wing of Elias Pettersson, but there are some new things that are trying out here. Joshua Bluger Garland, nice. Really great to see that line reunited. Heinen, Ratu, Hoglander. Okay, Heinen is kind of like that extra guy, I would say, that's being rotated around in a little bit more of a sort of moldable role. I don't really think that Danton Heinen's play has been too established with the Canucks so far, aside from the time that he was playing with Sherwood and Bluger on that line, but now that line has been split up, we'll see everybody get new looks elsewhere. I am excited to see Kiefer Sherwood with Pettersson, and of course I am excited to see Joshua Bluger Garland go out there and hopefully tear up the NHL once more like they did last year. To his credit, I thought Dakota Joshua was pretty okay last night, although he was not really played too much. Anyways, to end off this video, I wanted to go over some comments made by one Jeff Marek on the recent Canucks Conversation podcast, because he went out there and had an appearance. It was Harman Dale and David Quadrelli, as always, and Marek went out there and had some pretty interesting ideas in regards to the Vancouver Canucks, as published by an article here on Canucks Army by Clark Corson. Jeff Marek talks Canucks trade philosophy, Hughes, and more on the Canucks Conversation podcast. Let's go out there and read this. So, Marek, who is, by the way, not unemployed anymore, it looks like, went out there and spoke about the Canucks, saying this, that I don't think anyone is saying Stanley Cup about the Canucks. People look at this team and they see a really good group, one that needs help along the blue line. They need Thatcher Demko to perform, and a lot of things to go their way if they're going to make noise in the postseason. The Canucks are in that category where, if they're healthy and they get some breaks along the way, they could have a deep playoff run. It's great to see Elias Pettersson starting to shake off his slump. If that continues and JT Miller can get past whatever he's going through and play like we know he can, and if Besser returns sooner or later, they have players who could be contenders for major trophies. It's tough. Having everything clicking at once throughout a season is rare. I don't think we place enough emphasis on what it means to win the President's Trophy. Finishing on top after 82 wins is a real accomplishment. Marek then spoke out about Canucks trade philosophy, Marek believing that Jim Rutherford and Alvin will likely take an aggressive approach well in advance of the trade deadline. Rutherford was one of the first GMs to make moves early, and it paid off. He's always followed that model. I don't see any reason for that to change now. Rutherford believes that when you know the price for a player and you want them, you make the deal as soon as possible. It's a model that's works for him and brought him multiple Stanley Cup championships. And finally, Marek went out there and spoke out about Quinn Hughes, saying this, that he is awesome. Like any great player, he focuses on what he needs to work on, and he gets better at it. Suddenly, he's a shooting threat. You look at all the things that make Quinn Hughes an elite defenseman: his vision, game sense, skating, edge work positioning, creativity. If he stayed exactly as he was, he'd still probably win a few Norris trophies. But now he's added a shot to his game, which takes him to the next level. He's not satisfied with just being the best or winning a Norris. He is still working on getting even better. And so, with this in mind, it was interesting to note that Jeff Marek doesn't really see the Canucks as a prime playoff contender unless a few things go right. And it is acknowledged that there are more things that need to go right for this season to continue in a positive way, but for now, Canucks are in a bit of a slump. Rick Tocchet apologized to the fans. He called out his team and said that they're playing light and slow. And I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this and more? What are your thoughts heading into the Chicago Blackhawks game? Thoughts in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this British Show 9, and bye.